Imagine this. It's 73 AD, and you're a condemned prisoner in the heart of Rome. The air is heavy with the stench of sweat, blood, and fear as the executioner drags you through a maze of underground chambers beneath the Colosseum. Above, 50,000 voices roar like a thunderstorm, their cheers vibrating through the stone walls. You think you're here to face a lion, a gladiator, maybe a quick death in the arena to satisfy the bloodthirsty crowd. You're wrong. What awaits you isn't a public spectacle. It's a private, meticulously crafted nightmare, hidden from the masses. The executioner's eyes glint with a sickening familiarity as he gestures to his tools, each one gleaming like a surgeon's instruments, designed not just to kill, but to unravel your humanity, piece by agonizing piece. His smile says it all. He's done this hundreds of times. He knows exactly how long each method takes, how much pain a human body can endure, how to keep you conscious through every excruciating moment. What you're about to face isn't random cruelty. It's systematic, scientific, a dark art form perfected by a civilization that studied suffering with the precision of scholars studying mathematics. The Romans didn't just execute. They engineered terror, writing manuals, training specialists, and building devices to push the limits of human endurance. Every scream served a purpose. Every death sent a message to keep entire populations in line. Tonight, we're plunging into the darkest corners of the Roman Empire to uncover 6 of their most horrific torture methods. Methods so brutal they drove men to madness, broke the strongest spirits, and left entire cities trembling in fear. From the Judas cradle to the Ponacule, these are the tools that made Rome the most feared civilization in history. Before we descend into this abyss, if you're fascinated by the hidden truths of the past, hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves history as much as you do, and subscribe to join us on this journey. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Let's uncover these forgotten stories together. Let's start with the Judas cradle, a device that looks deceptively simple, almost innocent, sitting in the corner of a dimly lit chamber. A wooden pyramid, polished to a sinister shine, it could be mistaken for a crude stool by someone who didn't know better. But the Romans designed it with a diabolical purpose, blending engineering with cruelty to create a weapon that attacked both body and mind. The pyramid's angle was a triumph of precision, too sharp, and death came too quickly, too blunt, and the agony wasn't sufficient. Craftsmen spent generations perfecting the measurements, ensuring the device inflicted slow, unbearable suffering without allowing the mercy of a swift end. Victims were stripped naked, their wrists and ankles bound with coarse ropes and hoisted above the pyramid's point. Slowly, the executioner would lower them, letting their body weight press against the tip, gravity becoming the torturer's silent partner. The pyramid pierced delicate tissue, tearing through flesh hour by hour, designed to keep vital organs intact for as long as possible. What made the Judas cradle truly horrific wasn't just the physical pain, it was the psychological torment woven into every detail. Polished metal panels lined the chamber, reflecting the victims suffering back at them like a cruel mirror. They couldn't escape their own image, blood pooling beneath them, their body contorting in unnatural ways, their face twisted in agony. The Romans knew that watching your own destruction amplified despair, turning the mind into a battlefield before the body gave out. Guards intensified this by forcing condemned prisoners to watch others on the cradle before their turn, describing in vivid, gruesome detail how the pyramid felt as it worked deeper, how long previous victims lasted, what sounds they made when their bodies could take no more. The anticipation became a punishment in itself, a slow poison that eroded hope long before the ropes tightened. The cradle was tailored to each victim, a twisted form of personalization. Smaller pyramids were crafted for children, whose lighter weight required precise engineering to ensure prolonged suffering. Larger men needed reinforced bases to support their mass. Women faced pyramids designed to exploit their anatomy, ensuring no one escaped the full spectrum of pain. Artisans in cities like Pompeii took pride in their work, signing their creations like artists signing a masterpiece. Excavations have uncovered workshops with schematics for cradles tailored to different body types, some featuring adjustable mechanisms that allowed executioners to shift the angle mid-torture, others with heated metal tips that seared as they pierced, adding thermal agony to the mix. One account from a Roman prison describes a craftsman who spent years perfecting a cradle that could extend suffering for up to 3 days by controlling the rate of penetration. The Romans didn't just torture, they studied it, documenting which angles caused the most pain, which materials held up best, which psychological tactics broke spirits fastest. One survivor's account, scratched into a prison wall, tells of a man who begged for death before the ropes even touched him, driven mad by the sight of the cradle and the guards' relentless taunts. If this glimpse into Rome's dark ingenuity has you hooked, hit that like button, share this video to spread the word about history's hidden horrors, and subscribe to dive deeper into these stories. Comment below. What's the most shocking thing you've learned about the Romans so far? Let's keep peeling back the layers of the past. The Judas cradle was just the beginning, a grim appetizer for the horrors that awaited in Rome's public spectacles. Crucifixion, so often sanitized by Hollywood, was a masterclass in prolonged suffering, a method so refined it became the empire's signature execution. Forget the image of nails through palms and a quick, somber death. The reality was infinitely uglier. Roman executioners were anatomical experts, understanding the body better than most modern surgeons. They knew palms couldn't support a body's weight. Nails would tear through flesh in minutes. Instead, they drove iron spikes through the wrists, where the bones created a natural lock, ensuring the nails stayed in place no matter how much the victim thrashed. The feet were nailed sideways through the ankles, forcing the body into a painful crouch that compressed the lungs. Breathing became a battle. Every breath required pushing up on nail-pierced feet, sending waves of agony through the body. Most victims passed out from the pain, only to be jolted awake by the instinct to breathe, trapped in a cycle that could last hours or even days. Death came from asphyxiation, not blood loss, the unnatural position making every gasp a choice between excruciating pain and suffocation. The Romans designed crosses to maximize this torment, experimenting with different shapes for different effects. The traditional Latin cross was common, but T-shaped Tau crosses forced different muscle groups to strain, while X-shaped St. Andrew's crosses spread the body wider, making breathing even harder. Each design was tailored to specific crimes or crowd expectations, turning execution into a theater of pain. Executioners added refinements to prolong suffering. A small seat called a sedile offered just enough support to delay death, but not enough to ease the pain, while foot platforms forced victims to choose between hanging by their arms or standing on wounded feet. The Romans turned crucifixion into a science, with teams trained to work with assembly line efficiency. After the Jewish revolt of 70 AD, historical records describe roads lined with crosses for miles, with specialized crews crucifying dozens per hour, one team stripping and positioning victims, another driving nails, a third raising the crosses. It was industrial-scale horror, a production line of human suffering. Strong men could survive up to 3 days, their bodies racked with pain as they fought for each breath. Women and children sometimes lasted longer, their lighter weight putting less strain on the wounds. When the spectacle needed to end, guards would break the victim's legs, preventing them from pushing up to breathe, the sound of snapping bones signaling the show's grim finale. Crucifixion wasn't just about the individual. It was a message to the masses, with crosses placed along busy roads or in city centers to ensure everyone saw the price of defiance. Families were forced to watch, their grief amplifying the public's fear. One account from the historian Josephus describes a mother who went mad watching her son linger on a cross for 2 days, her screams mingling with the crowd's jeers. If this raw look at crucifixion's true brutality has you gripped, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unfiltered history. Comment below. Where are you watching from, and what do you think of the real crucifixion? Let's keep exploring the shadows together. The Colosseum was more than an arena. It was a stage for choreographed horror, and damnatio ad bestias, condemnation to the beasts, was one of Rome's most popular spectacles. Picture 50,000 Romans packed into the stands, their cheers shaking the earth as criminals were fed to wild animals. This wasn't random violence. It was a carefully orchestrated show designed to thrill and terrify. Every detail was planned to maximize both suffering and spectacle. Lions delivered quick, dramatic kills, their roars electrifying the crowd with speed and power. Bears were chosen for slower, more brutal maulings, breaking bones while keeping victims alive, batting them around like toys. Wild boars created spectacular wounds with their tusks, their attacks a bloody performance that left the arena soaked in red. Leopards, agile and relentless, toyed with victims, pouncing repeatedly without delivering a fatal blow, leaving them bleeding from dozens of small wounds as they ran in circles to the crowd's delight. Packs of wild dogs worked in coordinated attacks, overwhelming larger victims with surgical precision. The Romans turned these executions into storytelling, dressing victims as mythological figures to add narrative to the carnage. A thief might be chained to a rock as Prometheus, with trained eagles pecking at his liver, taking small bites to prolong the performance. Elaborate sets and mechanical devices heightened the drama. Trapdoors opened beneath victims' feet, weighted nets dropped to entangle them just as they thought they'd escaped, and mazes with false exits crushed hope in front of cheering crowds. The loudest roars came when victims thought they'd found safety, only to discover another barrier. Professional animal handlers, called bestiarii, were masters of their craft, knowing which animals to starve for maximum aggression and which to feed lightly to maintain their hunting instinct. They could predict how long each encounter would last, adjusting the pace to keep the crowd engaged. Some shows featured children thrown to beasts for minor crimes like stealing bread, their parents forced to watch from the stands. Entire families were executed together, starting with the youngest, their screams a chilling reminder of Roman power. Gladiators sometimes played a role, wounding victims to weaken them for the animals. These damnati specialized in precise cuts that caused heavy bleeding without immediate death, ensuring the beasts had an easier target. The psychological torture was relentless. Victims heard the animals' roars from the holding pens, their fear building with every moment. If this chilling glimpse into the Colosseum's horrors has you hooked, like this video, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more dark history. Comment below, what animal would you fear most in the arena? Let's keep exploring these stories together. The Romans didn't stop at public spectacles. They perfected private tortures that pushed the boundaries of human endurance. The boats, a method borrowed from Persia, was one of their most horrific creations, reserved for high-profile prisoners or those accused of heinous crimes. Victims were trapped between two wooden boats or tubs, with only their head, hands, and feet exposed, sealed so tightly they couldn't move. Guards force-fed them milk and honey, not out of mercy, but to fuel their destruction. The sugary mixture attracted insects, while the victim's own waste accumulated in the confined space. Flies laid eggs in open wounds, ants swarmed over honeyed skin, and wasps stung relentlessly. Within days, the victim was a living host to maggots, their body rotting while they remained conscious, fed daily to prolong their suffering. The timeline was the true horror. Death could take weeks. Roman physicians documented the process with chilling precision, noting that gangrene typically set in around day 7, delirium by day 10. Some victims survived up to 19 days, their minds trapped in a decaying body. The stench was so unbearable that guards rotated frequently, unable to stomach the smell. The Romans experimented with variations, adding heated metal to accelerate decay or using different honeys to attract specific insects. Execution sites were often placed near anthills or wasp nests to ensure immediate infestation. One account describes a political prisoner who survived 17 days, hallucinating and begging for death as maggots consumed his flesh. The psychological terror began before the insects arrived. Victims heard them buzzing, their dread building with every moment. The boats were as much about breaking the mind as destroying the body, a testament to Rome's mastery of cruelty. If this gruesome tale has you riveted, like, share, and subscribe to uncover more of history's darkest secrets. Comment below, could you endure the boats? Let's keep this journey going. The brazen bull took Roman cruelty to a new level, disguised as a work of art. This beautifully crafted bronze sculpture, shaped like a bull, was a masterpiece of horror designed by the inventor Paralaus for the tyrant Phalaris. It was hollow, large enough to hold a human body, with a side door for entry. Victims were locked inside, and a fire was lit beneath the bull's belly, turning it into an oven that roasted them alive. The true genius or depravity was the acoustic system. Tubes and chambers transformed screams into sounds resembling a bull's roar, creating a perverse musical performance. Executioners adjusted the fire's intensity to change the pitch, turning human agony into entertainment. Phalaris reportedly hosted dinner parties where the bull's music provided ambience, with servants stoking the fire to match the meal's courses. The bull's size forced victims into cramped, unnatural positions, amplifying their suffering. Some versions had adjustable internal mechanisms to shift the body during roasting, while smaller bulls were crafted for children and larger ones for multiple victims. The bronze retained heat long after the fire died, ensuring victims continued cooking even after death. Crowds gathered to hear the changing tones, treating the execution as a cultural event, with children brought to learn the consequences of defying Rome. The bull's legend grew when Paralaus himself became its first victim, a poetic twist orchestrated by Phalaris. If this chilling masterpiece of cruelty has you captivated, like this video, share it with a history buff, and subscribe for more shocking stories. Comment below, what's the most disturbing detail of the brazen bull? Let's dive deeper into history's shadows. The worst was saved for the most heinous crime in Roman society, parricide, the killing of a father. The pona cullae was a punishment so horrific it was meant to deter even the thought of such a betrayal. Victims were sewn into a leather sack with live animals, a dog for betrayed loyalty, a rooster for failed protection, a viper for poisonous betrayal, and an ape to mock the humanity the criminal had forsaken. The confined space turned the sack into a chaotic battlefield. Panicked animals bit, clawed, pecked, and struck, tearing at the victim in a frenzy. The psychological torture began before the sewing, with guards describing past executions in vivid detail, detailing which animals attacked first and how long victims lasted. The sack was then thrown into a river or sea, death taking hours as drowning, suffocation, or animal attacks claimed the victim. Some sacks washed ashore, where surviving animals continued their assault. One documented case describes a parricide who survived the initial drowning, only to be clawed and pecked to death over 3 days on a beach while onlookers refused to intervene. The symbolism was as critical as the pain. The animals represented the natural order the parricide had violated, the sack a return to chaos. Cicero's writings describe its use over 600 years, with regional variations adding different animals based on local availability. If this haunting journey into Rome's darkest punishment has you gripped, like, share, and subscribe to keep exploring history's hidden truths. Comment below, what animal in the sack would terrify you most? Let's uncover more together. We've journeyed through the shadows of the Roman Empire, uncovering 6 methods of torture that reveal the chilling precision of their cruelty. From the Judas cradle's psychological torment to the pona cullae's unimaginable horror, these punishments weren't just about death. They were about power, control, and fear. The Romans engineered spectacles that left entire populations trembling, their screams echoing through history as warnings to obey. These stories remind us of humanity's capacity for both ingenuity and inhumanity, but also of the resilience of those who endured, scratching their stories into prison walls, defying Rome even in their final moments. If this exploration has left you hungry for more, click the video on your screen now to dive into another shocking chapter of history. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to know the truth about Rome, and subscribe to join our community of history seekers. Comment below, which torture shocked you the most, and where are you watching from? Let's keep shining a light on the stories that time tried to erase. Thank you for joining me. Let's keep exploring the shadows of the past together.